Once in a lifetime, a politician comes along who's not a politician, who's a person who cares about our community, and that man is here with us today. Please welcome the next mayor of Santa Monica, Jimmy Mayhew.
Thank you for that very nice introduction, Susie.
Economists look at the issue of voting and the decisions people make on voting and think about things a little bit differently. First, what are the arguments to vote? Well, the arguments to vote are commonly taught, so I don't know that I need to go through them too much, right? It's a civic duty. We do have the ability as voters to help influence who gets into office. Even though the chances of any one vote influencing the election are incredibly small, a lot of people play the lottery and spend their money on lottery tickets. You could view this as a form of playing the lottery, right? You're probably not going to, quote unquote, win by having your vote be the deciding vote, but there's a chance, and that chance is fun, and that has some value. It could be that people just misconstrue and think their one vote really will be the one that influences the election or is likely to influence the election. There's a lot of reasons why people might vote. Let's go to a scene where Larry David goes canvassing for Jimmy Mayhew. See what he has to say here.
Good afternoon. My name is Irma Kostrowski, and we are here to get this man elected as the next mayor of Santa Monica, as Jimmy Mayhew.
Wonderful candidate.
Pro-environment.
Loves fresh air. He loves fresh air.
Solve the homeless problem.
He's going to make him homed. Homed.
Where does he stand on the issues?
You can't say Happy New Year after January 7th.
I don't think
I like that. Very smart. Last year I got a Happy New Year during Black History Month. And what else?
No child under 10 allowed in restaurants.
Oh, no, that's awesome.
Love that?
He's very strong on environmental issues.
Really? Like what?
He respects wood.
I like that a lot.
Good.
A pin for you.
I might just have to put it on right now. Appreciate you guys.
Oh, one more thing.
Yes.
He's eliminating handshaking.
He's my man.
A lot of the stuff you're saying isn't true.
What, are you kidding? He ate it up.
Yeah, well, stick to the script, okay?
Fascinating clip. Interesting the things the politicians will say. You can't say Happy New Year after a particular date or things like that. With some of the ridiculousness that you expect and love from Curb Your Enthusiasm. So that clip gets us into a good discussion of why you may not wish to vote. And a lot of it comes down to the expected value, the expected benefits of voting versus the expected costs of voting. If you look at two particular candidates, you might have strong feelings in a particular election. And economists are able to put monetary values on people's preferences for one thing versus another, on just about everything, right? There's monetary values of life or losing limbs, for example. So perhaps of the presidential candidates upcoming, if one is elected versus another, maybe there is a $10,000 difference in well-being or $20,000 difference in your well-being if it's one versus the other. That's a pretty big number. I think that's, while people may like or not like one, for the vast majority of people, the number's not going to be this high. But let's say it is. Let's say it's $20,000. That's what would happen if your one vote influenced the election, right? Then that vote had a $20,000 expected value, or had a $20,000 value for you. But the odds that your vote influences the election are stunningly small. And in a lot of states, they're essentially zero. If you live in California, for example, doesn't matter the way you vote. The electoral delegates will be going to the Democratic candidate. If you live in, let's say, South Dakota, North Dakota, it's going to go to the Republican candidate. Your vote for the presidential race, it's got an expected monetary value of zero. It is not going to influence the race. So even though you may be better off or worse off with one candidate, it doesn't matter. There are some states where they're considered swing states, but even in the swing states, often it's a vote difference of 10, 20, 30, or 40,000 votes. Now, to simplify, let's assume that you are in a state where there is a 10,000 vote difference. It's likely to be 10,000 one way or another. So there's 20,000 possible outcomes between 10,000 in favor of one candidate or 10,000 in favor of the other candidate. Well, that's 20,000 different outcomes. Remember, we mentioned, what about a $20,000 monetary value? Well, the expected value of your vote then is $1. If the race is that close in your state, and your state is the one that swings the election. So it's really not even the $1 on that. So the monetary value of your vote is incredibly low. And then what's the cost of voting? Well, let's take a very short clip where we get a little glimpse of the cost.
Oh, y'all, it's hot out here, Larry.
Boy, this is brutal.
Yes.
How long have you been waiting?
Over 2.5 hours.
What?
Yes.
That is just insane.
It's horrible.
What could they put people through just to vote?
I'm melting.
Okay, in that poll line, the person was waiting for 2.5 hours. That's a very real cost in terms of time, in terms of opportunities that they are foregoing to vote. But there's also a bit more than that. Presidential races we hear a lot about, so you might have a good sense of Trump versus Biden, if that indeed is what ends up happening. It certainly looks like it. But for many other races, you might not know much at all. In Pennsylvania, we vote on judges. I think the vast majority of people don't really know much about what any particular judge might stand for. And the cost is more than just showing up for the polls. It might be any background research that you'd have to do to find out about one person versus another person. So the expected cost for everybody is almost certainly way more than the $1 expected benefit that we saw that was likely an overestimate. So from a monetary point of view, it certainly seems like that's not worth it. Now let's look at a clip here where Larry David is in a voting line, and what he ends up deciding to do here is pretty interesting.
Look at this. Jeez.
It's ridiculous. It's not even moving.
Yeah. I had to move my golf lesson. I would have been here much earlier if not for this so-called widow.
Thank you for voting.
Yeah,
Thank you for
no
voting.
thanks. I'm good.
Take the pin.
You know what? It makes a hole in my jacket.
And it's a thin pin.
Thin pin? You
Yeah.
give me that line?
Yeah, let me show you.
I've used that line myself. No such thing as a thin pin, okay? It doesn't exist. Thin
Didn't
pin.
hurt.
You happy?
Very happy.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, I voted. Look at me. Hey. Can I ask you a personal question?
What?
Who are you voting for?
Riemann Schneider.
You're voting for Riemann Schneider. I have a proposition for you. I'm voting for Mayu. We kind of cancel each other out. You know, this line. Why don't we get the hell out of here?
I like it.
Huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's go. Pleasure.
Yeah.
So Larry David decides not to vote in a way by saying, okay, we're going to just cancel each other out, so why don't we just not be here anymore and save the time? That seems like a pretty rational reason not to vote, to be honest. If that's the only race, you have two people, they just cancel each other out. If there's a credible commitment that the other one won't come back and end up voting, that makes sense. What are some other reasons economists might provide where it's very rational for people not to vote? Well, another key one is that your vote is not divisible. So for example, we have Trump versus Biden. Maybe you're in between on a lot of the issues and you're like, well, I think Trump is deranged. I don't want to put Trump in, but I think Biden is senile. I don't want to put Biden in. Well, what do? Okay, you can vote for a third party, but that's not influencing the race. At least, probably not. Or maybe you're thinking, I really like what Biden says about abortion or the economy, but I really like what Trump says about the border and border security. You don't get to vote for border security for Trump and abortion for Biden. You don't get to do that. You have one vote. And you might have candidates who are very much doing what you'd like on one issue and very much doing something you don't like on another issue. So that expected value I mentioned earlier of one candidate versus the other could be incredibly low because, yeah, they do some things you like, but they do some things you don't like. And that would be actually a very rational reason, again, for somebody to choose not to vote. Let's watch the final clip I'm going to show before we close up with a little bit more discussion.
Don't make me laugh.
The results are in for the Santa Monica mayoral contest, and wow, with 100% of the precincts reporting, the winner is Jay Riemenschneider.
Oh my God.
With all precincts in now, it appears as if Mayhew lost by one vote.
Oh my God.
It's impossible.
One vote.
That's historic. I'm not sure that's ever happened.
Whatever lazy piece of shit didn't bother to vote is going to have a hard time sleeping tonight.
How you lose by one vote?
I don't know. This is ridiculous.
So, if anybody out there decided not to vote today for whatever reason, you could have changed the future of our city.
So true. One vote makes a difference. This is why you get
outrageous.
to vote
How
out.
do you lose by one vote?
I know how he lost by one vote. Larry David thought the line was too long, so he didn't vote.
You didn't vote?
Is that true, Larry?
That's not true. It's not true. It's not
I
true.
watched the whole thing. I watched you walk away from the line and throw your voting pin in the trash can. Isn't that right, Larry?
All right, let me explain what happened, okay?
One damn vote.
No, let me explain.
All the canvassing. What you're believing.
I made a deal with the Riemenschneider voter.
You don't care about Santa Monica. You only care about yourself.
In the way only Curb Your Enthusiasm can go, the election is decided by one vote, and Larry David leaving the line means it's not a tie. Well, we don't know what exactly would have happened with the tie, but it's not a tie, and therefore, of course, everybody is very upset with Larry David. But how often does that scenario actually play out? Right? I mentioned how the 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000 chance earlier, but it's quite rare that this happens. So it's about 15, 20 years ago that the study came out, but I think the numbers are still pretty relevant. In an analysis of 40,000 elections for state legislators, economists found that only 7 elections were decided by a single vote, with 2 others that were tied. So 9 out of 40,000, about 1 out of 4,000. So if you are in a close race for a state position where there aren't quite as many voters, okay, you want to take 1 in 4,000 as your proxy, that might be what influences the vote. That might be a good number for you to go by. Of course, it could be lower in some other instances, especially if you have a smaller population. It could be actually quite a bit lower. But it is overall very few races that end up getting decided by only one vote. Economists often get some heat for this particular position. Put the caveat out there, I do vote in a lot of races. I actually enjoy the process of voting. I do like that, even though it might not be rational to vote. Although if I get joy from it, that does indeed make it rational. But a lot of people get upset at economists for raising these issues, why not to vote. I would challenge those. If you're thinking this is ridiculous, what I would challenge, and Jadrian Wooten in our Economics Happy Hour podcast also have this discussion, a link to that in the description. But if you really think, how could you possibly not vote? Have you skipped any elections? Have you skipped the local elections? Have you skipped the midterm year elections, the county commissioner elections? If you can get upset about this rationale, did you actually do it yourself? And for almost everybody who gets upset initially, they've done it. They've said, oh, well, I don't want to figure out what to do for this race, which is a rational reason for not voting, as we discussed. If you have voted in everything, if you are the unicorn that does that, which is a tiny, tiny fraction of the population, well, congratulations, I guess. Let me know why you do it, how you do it. I'll be interested to know in the comments. But hope you enjoyed this. Curb Your Enthusiasm shows a lot of economics lessons. So this is part of a series where each week dropping videos during the final season of Curb Your Enthusiasm that examine economic concepts within. So like, subscribe, click the notifications bell. If you've missed some of the previous, there's the playlist. Go ahead and check those out. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.